Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and very pleased to give you a very warm welcome to our webinar this afternoon on behalf of the Worshipful Company of Furniture Makers. My name is Peter Holland. I'm the founder of Linear Structure, and I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon and to look at this subject of innovation in retail. And it's a great pleasure to be joined by two of the UK's top CEOs. So maybe I could introduce you to Tim Stacey of DFS and Peter Harrison of Furniture Village.
Hi guys.
Afternoon.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you've got one or two things to get done today. So very much appreciative of your time. And the reason that we're putting on the webinar today is really to explore how retailers have used adaptive strategies over the extraordinary times that we've faced in the last few months. And we're going to invite them to share some of those insights, particularly how they could potentially influence and help other people in the industry who are going through similar challenges, regardless of the size of business you might have. So for any of you that are unfamiliar with the Furniture Makers Company, it's the furnishing industry charity. So it's a London livery company. Represents industry across all levels and really just ensures that we remain at the forefront of international competition. And the main principles are education and training, celebrating design excellence in design and in manufacture, and then also as a charity looking after people who have worked in the industry or after that have particular needs. So also I'd like to invite you this afternoon, if you have questions that you'd like to pose, you'll notice down at the bottom, you've got a little box there, Q&A box. You can type in any questions that you have for the panel. We'll put those to Peter and Tim as well. Very good. All right. So that's all of the housekeeping done. So now we can get on with our conversation. And I think maybe the best place to start is when there's a crisis of any sort, we naturally look to the leaders of organizations for direction. And I was thinking about what might be important to you in terms of setting an example that you felt could be replicated by maybe other people in your senior management team and throughout the company in general. So I don't know who'd like to go first.
Tim should go first.
Tim, we'll give him a chance.
Well, Tim's the oldest and the biggest company, isn't he?
I can see how this is going to work, can't you? Yeah, I mean, in times of crisis, we're going through one, aren't we? And I guess what we have thought about a lot as we've gone through this last year or so, and the different crises that have emerged, is to really, I guess, act as that interpreter for our people, because what's clearly been very confusing throughout this last year has been the various announcements, last minute announcements, U-turns, changes. What does it mean for our showrooms? What does it mean for our people? What does it mean for their pay? What does it mean for manufacturing? What does it mean for logistics? And throughout it all, what we've tried very hard to do is to decipher that, act as interpreters for that, and to put it in layman's speak for our people, just to keep them very aware of the ever-changing context. So that's one big thing that we've done. And in fact, if I go back to the early days of the crisis, Peter, you and I and a couple of others talked quite a lot to try and understand what was going on, because it was ever-changing, fast-moving. So having a shared understanding that helped our people understand what that meant for them and helped our organisation understand what it meant for the different functions was super important. Point number one. And I guess before I hand to Peter, the second point would be around visible leadership. So, as well as clearly trying to communicate as clear as you can through email and Gmail and various other things. I think being visible and there for your people. So I see Peter's in one of his stores down south, and I think I've tried hard to be out in the factories, out in the distribution centres, and talking to people as well as the electronic communication. So visible leadership, that we're with them, especially if we're asking them to do a job, in COVID, where we've had manufacturing and logistics stopped for a while, then we're up and running again. You've got to be there to be, visible leadership and a confident level of leadership, I think, has been very important. So those have been a couple of things, Peter, that we've tried to do. Mr. Harrison?
That's the politest you've been to me, Tim.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. But the most important aspect of any business is your people, and you've got to communicate with them straight away. We had to understand what we were facing. I'm totally with that. We viewed it a bit like a war. You had to understand what the enemy was, what they're doing, what we could do to, in fact, keep our place there. And I pulled together a lot of senior execs quite quick, 6 or 7 quickly, and we all farmed out different jobs. Understanding this virus and getting underneath the safety aspects, how you could deal with the COVID safety measures, that was a big high priority for us, especially for those who were meeting. And we had to meet, if we're talking about the first time round, obviously everything shut down. I mean, this current one, we're still got warehouses and like open, but everything shut down. Communicate with the people. We've got the email address of every member of our team, everybody, so we could communicate with them directly, because it was a very scary time, and calm everyone down and share. I don't know. I suppose as a leader, and a father and a grandfather, make sure that everyone's okay. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. It was a scary time.
Yeah, and I know, Tim, you mentioned to me as well the importance of maybe sort of thinking about all of the suppliers and the other key stakeholders and working in partnership with them.
Yeah, well, I think Peter's is saying, we've got long-standing relationships across this country and Europe and Far East, and when we had to shut down in, March 23rd, 24th, whenever it was this time last year, big implications from a cash flow point of view, big implications from what does this mean going forward? And what we tried to do from day one, as well as our people, which, looking after our people, helping them understand what it meant for them, was what does it mean for our long-standing suppliers across the country? Sure. And we needed to make sure that we stabilise that situation as quickly as possible and work in partnership with everybody, because, we have long-standing relationships and we wanted to keep them going. We didn't want to turn this into an attritional thing at all. And so we've had constructive conversations with landlords, with suppliers, with all the people we work with. And that's been, as we come out of this, I think that stands us in good stead. And treating people, it's funny, when times are tough, you find out who your friends are. And I think, certainly, I developed a good relationship with people I hadn't spoken to before in this industry, and would hope that those relationships keep going forward, in terms of how we behaved through that. So I think that was really important. Yeah,
no, it's been interesting through this whole series of webinars, this idea of communication internally and externally with people to make sure there's clear direction for people seems to have been a real hallmark. Just want to talk for a minute about, we had quite a few questions around the subject of innovation, and whether, a business is kind of micro or macro. Everybody's had to make really big adjustments to the way they do things, even down to maybe, the risk mitigation, and thinking through how that's all going to work. Are there any sort of new experiences that coming through this period that have changed your business model, that where you've been able to innovate and to change to overcome the challenges that you could share?
I would gladly. Can I just pick up something Tim said there and agree totally with the relationship with suppliers? There's an expression in the business that when times are tough, you want to buy from a friend. And I think Tim's experiences were very similar to ours, in that we got closer and closer to our suppliers. I mean, it's always been a big priority for us as a business, but particularly during that time. Attrition, I think, is a word Tim used, which is a good word. There was no place for that. When times are tough, buy from a friend and deal with a friend. And the same applies to the customers. They want to deal with a friend because of the nervousness around it. This has been a marvelous time in some respects. Forgive me, maybe that's not the right word, but you know, none of us would have wished COVID upon us, would we? None of us wanted the devastation, the despair that it's caused, and the economic impact it's had, and worse still, obviously, the impact it's had upon human life, whether they were friends or family or loved ones. So it's been devastating. But what it has done is it's almost sort of, certainly earlier on, when very little was functioning, it managed you to actually stop for a minute and take stock of how you do your business and how, in my terms, you set out your stall. And it made us look at every aspect of the business to see how we could make it better. I remember meeting a guy called Steve Williams once, who was an international Olympic rower, lovely guy. And he came and he spoke. I met him at a do, and I said, come and talk to my people and my managers. And he did. And he talked about how every 1/10 of a second, or sorry, 100th of a second made a difference to them. And it's incredible when you get the time to actually look at your business in detail, how much better you can make it. And it was, you had to make valuable use of that time as much as you could, as well as try and work around the furloughs and the likes. You know, it's very, very odd time, but make the most of it. I mean, I'm sitting in our Crawley store at the moment, and I have a meeting here with our sales managers from the south. They've all had tests this morning. Some are wearing masks, some wearing visors, and we've done, I think, a pretty good job on the COVID safety measures, and we're getting ready for opening. But we're showing them at the moment a lot of new ideas, a lot of innovation, a lot of where we believe we can change, because the shop is going to be somewhat different, aren't they? I mean, online is an obvious influence here. It's grown dramatically. But thankfully, we're in a business where people still want to touch it and feel it and lay on it and put their head back, see how heavy it is. I can't do that online yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with that. I think it was a parallel track, wasn't it? So you're fighting the crisis and all what's coming out, but at the same time, taking that step back and looking at your business model in terms of April, May, June, and what the implications of this might be. And I think, if anything, we accelerated our strategy to think about the role of the digital channels with the stores. Because I'm with Peter, you know, fundamentally in our category, in particularly for us from a sofa point of view, you know, we fundamentally believe in the sit, test, and comfort. It's a tactile product. You want customers to come into the showrooms. I'm noticing a Q&A talking about the role of online, and yes, online penetration has definitely gone up, but when we reopened the showrooms, it came back down again to kind of more normalized levels. It may have gone up a couple of percentage points, but fundamentally what we've got to figure out is how do we innovate to get people through the website, inspired through imagery and all the tools that they can have, but in the end into the showrooms to sit on the product, to lie on the product, to touch the product, to have that conversation with real people who know and are experts in furniture, to find the right sofa for them. Because you're living with a sofa for 7 years, as many of you know, and getting the right sit is so important. And yes, it might look good on an image online, you click to buy, but how many people then regret it for sort of 7 years because it's not quite comfy enough? So I think our innovation has been a lot about engaging online, but with a view ultimately to trying to encourage people to come into the showrooms and have that sit and have that experience, to have that day out and walk the parks and, you know, drop into Furniture Village, but ultimately buy from DFS.
You know, if I'd written the script, then Tim obviously would have seen it. He's just chosen all my words, and we were in touch before today's call, and we said we'll have Queensberry's rules. And you know, all I wanted is for him to break first. Yeah, you know that.
I knew. I was waiting. So it's 15:15.
That's the way it works. So once you're broken, and then you can then anything goes. But listen, that was good stuff that Tim said, and Now he's been unfurloughed, but now he's back from that and involved in the business. It can start sorting it out again. Look, I mean, there's nothing like shops as furniture shops, and I've grown up all my life in shops, and I department stores and furniture. I love my business. And there's no question, particularly the slightly better end customers want to touch it and feel it and get involved in it. That was what Tim said there was absolutely right. You know, buying online is great for certain products, and we've done incredibly well online, and Tim has as well. I know he has. I know because I read all his results that came in yesterday, and that's why I thought, Peter, you may have brought this conference, this call forward a week, because then it's great results. I mean, you've got to be honest, I have no enemies in the industry, none whatsoever. I hope I don't. On my business, we don't. And I certainly have some good friends, but done in a sensible and a proper way. I have nothing but admiration for DFS. And I read their results yesterday. Fantastic. It's a serious business. That way we do business slightly differently because we're not quoted, but and we were going to try and stay that way. Online has become a massive part of our businesses. I mean, probably 40% of what we'd normally do, we've been doing online, which you'd never have thought prior to that was about 10% or 12, and explored every avenue as I know Tim has too, and all the other guys. David Knight's at SCS is a good guy, and live chat and video calls, and getting everybody involved, because this time around we only furthered a small amount of people, and we actually kept them in working on the video calls and the live chats. Which was good.
That's something that we talked about early on, wasn't it, Peter? About so we started when we first reopened back in June. We all went with appointment booking to give people that security that we could stagger customers through. I can see another question coming through. So trying to manage the number of customers coming through, but also ensure that the customer knew that they felt safe when they come in. They were going to meet a certain sales colleague. So appointment booking's been very important. I think it will still be. So we are changing our opening times to have sort of more private appointments early, and then open the stores at sort of 10 a.m. to the general public. So trying to cater for those people who do feel a little bit unsafe in this environment because COVID hasn't gone away. So we have to be very careful with that. So, but I think everything that we do from an innovation point of view, from our point of view, is how do you connect the digital and the physical channels. And yes, online penetration's gone through the roof in many categories, fashion, you name it. But I think from a furniture point of view, we firmly believe in the role of the showroom. Call it a showroom, not a store. How do you really showcase the product and the interior design and the innovation and the tactile nature of our product? And we'll be investing, as Peter is, at opening new stores, and we'll be investing in the store environments. We'll be investing in sales colleagues to engage customers. We firmly believe that, but we're not naive enough to think that Wayfair of this world, coming along and they are disrupting the furniture market. But we've got to be looking at the other end of that and thinking about the benefit of having showrooms and showing it in real life, which is always better than virtual reality, I think. Yeah,
well said. Definitely. Well said. I mean, we even put a virtual village on our website, which has been a big hit. I had a lot of hits. Where we filmed a store, and you can just walk around it and then click on the products, and that's probably as close as you can get to it. And like Tim, I know he's been having his boys and girls at the end of the phone and using either iPads or the smartphones to take the customers around the store and explain what the comfort levels are like. But all of that is a bit pretend. Yeah. And it's buying something that you want to love, and look, there's no question about it either, and maybe Peter Holland, you will be thinking about this in your questions, but this is in an ironic way, a perverse kind of way, that the home is going to be the center of many people's thoughts and priorities, and possibly their spending as well in the coming period, however long that is, whether it's months or even years. But it will, and if you purchase something for your home and you'll be spending more time at home, it has much greater significance. And buying it online is one way, and there are certain products you could buy, a coffee table maybe, and maybe even a table of chairs. If it's to go in the corner of the kitchen, it looks nice and whatever. But buying a sofa or buying a bed is quite a personal thing, isn't it? And you've got to get involved in it. And you've got to need advice and somebody helping you to get the right one for you. To get the wrong bed, you know what that may mean. And we're just itching to get open again, to be honest. And I don't think there'll be any shortage of customers. I really don't. In fact, to the contrary.
I think one of the areas that's we touched on it just a little bit earlier, but this idea of communication, because over the last 8 months or so, or maybe even longer, we all kind of missed the opportunity to collaborate with people. The interchange of ideas that you get working in either a store or in an office together. What have you done to be able to sort of maintain that kind of environment during this period? Were there any ways that you've managed to achieve that?
Tim, do you want to go?
I know that Peter's slightly, well, not slightly different. We do actually take some good ideas from that, which is, I think, in the end. So we've got all the things that you'd expect in terms of the Google sort of suite, G Suite, with all the Hangouts and Zooms and whatever. And so we do all the usual things that one would expect around virtual connections every week and meetings and all that, and morning prayers. And that's fine to a point. It keeps people connected. I suppose that's the kind of the point of it, and it's been invaluable when we haven't been able to go out. However, I think in our industry, as a creative industry, in the end, if you're going to come up with NPD kind of launches and you're looking at a store environment, we've still managed to meet together, but very carefully. So we'll meet in a store, and we'll meet in our support centre with a few people carefully, because you need to sit on the product, you need to look at the product, you need to engage in that in a physical way rather than just a virtual way. So we've kept a bit of that going. We've followed all the rules and being very clear, but I think in our category, as we opened up in June, and then as we open up again hopefully in April, we've got loads of new products which you can't sign off through an image. You have to do it physically. So I think it's been a mixture of the normal virtual tools, and we're all kind of a bit fatigued by them, aren't we? And then, meeting in real life, but safely. And I think, Peter, you've been a big advocate of that, haven't you?
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to hear it, Tim, because I didn't think you had a lot of new products. Most of it looked like a Graham Kirkham bought, but so I'm looking forward to this. I'm only joking, mate. Seriously, I'm with you totally, and product is what we do, and it'll become even more important. The home's more important, isn't it, to everybody, and we all know that because of the difficulty to get away and holidays and entertain, do other things outside the house. But I think we have some new ranges, and there are a lot of new ranges that were arriving before the shutdown. And that customers haven't had the opportunity to see. There are other ranges that as well, and being serious for a moment, it will always sell well and will always be good. Yeah. But we all love new products. We all love it. And it's the lifeblood of our kind of business. And we love showing it off. And the nice thing about being on here, and I don't know if we ever get the chance to, you asked the question, Peter, but what everyone says about larger businesses, and my business not as large as DFS, and especially since they brought in Sophology, which I thought was a fine business too. They put much back into the industry. They put as much back in. I'm not just talking to him, and nobody's paid me to say that, but they certainly have in terms of marketing, and we try to as well. So if you put between us, we're probably putting a decent sum of money into marketing, which doesn't always benefit the name on the advert. What it does is it says, there's new product, there's a nice product out there, and your home too can look nice like this, or good like this, or you can have a comfortable bed, or whatever it may be. And so, as you get larger as an organization with us, we almost have a responsibility to do that. I mean, it sounds as if I'm looking for votes. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think, you know, I'm very conscious of when businesses are big or you open another store in another town and what effect that may have, particularly on the independent sector, of which we have quite a big affiliation. Because we're still an independent business to a large extent. And I think we compensate for it. And by putting funds back into the market and continue to promote the market as a whole rather than just as individual retailers. I think that's important.
Yeah, I'm thinking also about for you guys, you know, during or prior to the pandemic, you know, rapid fulfillment was like a key hallmark of success in terms of lead times. And do you feel that customers have become more accepting of the longer lead times? Because obviously there's been a lot of restrictions, there's a lot of disruption. How do you see things moving forward now?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you don't mind, Tim, I go now. Listen, we've both had our difficulties in that area for fulfillment. And of course, the deal is never done. The race is never won until the race is run. And often taking an order in the first place is the easiest part of the transaction. It certainly has been of late. Getting the goods home into the customer's home, that's a different matter. Lead times have run out substantially during this pandemic, and to a large extent it's understandable. At times we've tended to think, well, do we really need to shut down? We needed to do that. Why was there a shortage of this? And when you're on the other side of the fence, it's difficult to actually get into that when you've got customers that we're expecting. And you know, when somebody buys something of the magnitude of we sell, because it's, you know, £1,000 or £2,000 or more, you know, they're very excited about it and they want to get it. Sure. And lead times at the moment are far too long, although they are coming down, obviously. Well, we've been shut for 2 months or over 2 months. So, you know, apart from what we're selling online, which is okay, but, you know, for us, it's 35–40% of what we were. And it's in the main, it's different things, you know, different. I mean, at the much better end, we've sold some, but, you know, the much better end customers want to come in and try it and see it, you know.
Yeah.
But the lead times is going to be a problem. And the suppliers, we're spending a lot of time with our suppliers now, discussing with them how important it is in order to maintain a sensible lead time ratio. And the fulfillment is such a vitally important time. If anybody from our suppliers, they may well have come in on this webinar. It'd be nice if they had done. And you know, they know, having been through what we've been through in the past year, coming up for, isn't it, since the original lockdown, that how important it is and the role they play. We need to get on with it, but not at the cost of quality or service or anything of that nature.
Yeah,
we've got a lot to do.
I'd echo that piece completely, in the sense that I think even before the pandemic, I think lead times were a challenge. When you look at some of the, you know, Far East lead times, and you look at the younger consumer, are they prepared to wait 12 weeks, 13 weeks for a product? Less so, but if it's the right product for them, they're going to live with it for 7 years. You know, absolutely. You know, we can sell that in. But I think my sense is, and I'm sure we've all had this, and I know David had it, David Knight at SES, that customers are a bit more impatient. And there's a lot more anxiety out there as a result of the pandemic. And as the lead times went out through the autumn, and then the phone crisis hit in whenever, November, it was a perfect storm of very long lead times, very uncertain deliveries to customers. And that was really challenging. But that was an industry-wide problem. And we're going to have to face into it. And that's about some challenging things for business models. What does that mean for stock? What does that mean for working capital? What does that mean for UK capacity? What does it mean for European capacity? There's some really big, I think, strategic challenges for us going forward. Plus, I'll throw in the ESG agenda in terms of carbon footprint. You know, is it sustainable to be sourcing leather from South America and shipping it to China and then shipping it to the UK in the long term? You know, maybe not. So we've got to look at these things, because the cost of shipping from China has gone through the roof, as we all know. We all know that. So everybody experiences that. So I think there's some big challenges in the supply chain, which ultimately customers, from a lead time point of view, they want it when they want it. Typically, they're doing a project, aren't they? So 4, 6, 8 weeks lead time is not a problem. Some people want it immediately, but it's a small percentage. But I think there's some wider things at play here, which we which we've talked about this week in terms of our own manufacturing needing to increase capacity. We're proud of our own manufacturing, but it needs investment, and we're proud of some of the fantastic UK partners we have who are upping their capacity and investing, because exactly what Peter said. The great news is when we reopen, there could well be some pent-up demand. But the challenge will be back in June, July, when that pent-up demand starts to build, the lead times will go out again because we haven't got enough capacity across the industry. So it's how do you get that balance, which is a real, I think there's some big challenges coming in the next few years on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with Tim, but as ever, you have good relationship with suppliers. We don't have our own manufacturing capacity, but we do have very close connections with our key suppliers, and have maintained a reasonable amount of good lead times. But we're also quite a big stocker. We do carry a lot of stock, and that brings much used words challenges with it as well. So particularly on beds and with dining, and of course most of the cabinet furniture is coming in from abroad in any event, because hardly anybody in the UK makes cabinet furniture anymore. So it comes in, and we buy it in vast quantities now, and therefore the lead times are often not that bad, because we're prepared to carry the stocks. And upholstery, you can still do that. There are still certain models that people want, and it's basic leather model at a certain size, and which the best-selling colors are. They're invariably greys now, that were beiges, and eventually going to become something else. So I think probably, certainly of late, our stock sales have been much higher, but going forward, I would think there would be 20%, something like that, and that will help it. When you get things like the foam crisis or foam shortage, and I think in the bed market it was springs, and there are other things that happen, that's what we do for a living, and I know it's difficult. In that case, it was chemicals and so forth, and from Germany and what have you, and there was all sorts of stories about that's Brexit for you, but we're in business, aren't we? And we've got to be organized enough to be able to deal with the challenges of supply chains, and probably the owners to a great extent will start with us. It will start with us to get in our crystal ball and say, what do we think is going to happen? As a relatively big retailer, me and Tim's business as a substantial retailer, you say to the supplier, this is what we think is going to happen, and that was of great help for them. And we try forecasting. We try to do that very regularly and as accurately as possible, because and there's no doubt that it's going to go up. If the capacity remains the same and the demand goes up, there's only one thing going to happen. So unless the capacity goes up, and I take my hat off to you, Tim, that opening your own factories, I think it's great. I don't mean this as a slur, and I wouldn't say it. We have a very varied selection, and I actually trade to a large extent on having that varied selection and of brands. And whilst the consumer may not know there's so many brands, we do ourselves, and those are brands. If your furniture, under your fingernails, it's in you, that are important to us, and they will remain important to us. And therefore, so the selection is very, very varied, and the amount of fabrics you can choose and so forth are varied.
I think that's a really important point when you talk about lead times and you talk about the online players and how successful they are or not. Having exclusive products to our own businesses, and having products that you can only buy at Furnish Village or you can only buy at DFS, and they are different and they're a reason to come to us. That's important to us, and therefore, new product development is a lifeblood. And if that means there's a lead time to it because it's the one you really want and you're going to spend £1,500, £2,000, whatever, that's absolutely key to the future. If we're selling a product that you can buy in Wayfair or Next online quickly, then that's going to be a problem, because they've got a different sort of approach to making money in terms of Wayfair, and they will grow the customer acquisition. So we've got to have unique and great products that people come to our showrooms for. And Peter's had a slightly different selection. You know, it's probably a bit inferior compared to DFS, but not too far behind. Sorry, it's 2-1 now. Anyway, go on, Peter. Back to you, Peter Holland.
Well, I don't know. I think it would be a good idea. If you like, I can pick up my video and just show you around my showroom, if you like, in Crawley, and you'll see that I can take you around the showroom. No, I'm only joking. Listen, this market is big enough for all of us, isn't it? And what we want to do is, one of the things that I think also is, I just study the market a lot, and I study the consumers and the consumer behaviour. And I know where Furniture Village is, and I know sits in a probably a more mature customer, because that's the price points. That's where we want it to be, and we like to be. So by nature, therefore, when you go back to lead times, some customers are comfortable with that. Because they know that it's been made especially for them. And I think it's something that, you know, that Tim does at DFS. DFS has been well known for the products they make themselves, that they're handmade and they're made especially for the customer. And lots of people want that, don't they? It's good. That's good about the industry. And people say it's a cottage industry, but it needs to be, doesn't it? How can you be, you know, you can't make massive factories of massive production all exactly the same. And, you know, there are people, you know, not every house is the same, is it? Not every house looks the same, and there's the same rooms in the same place with the same size, you know, and the same goes for furniture. Furniture, when people buy furniture, it's an expression of them, their personality, the way they are, you know, and they take pride in it. And, you know, I think that's great. And that will never be any different. And there will always be a place, but whatever they call it, the cottage industry, you know, it's not. You know, there's plenty of factories, and I haven't been around a DFS factory yet because Tim hasn't invited me.
I banned you from them.
To be honest, I've got a couple of exclusives. I wouldn't mind if he could make them for us, because
let's catch up after this then, because you know
spare capacity.
It's going to get out of hand. Peter, we better go back to you.
Back to me. Well, back to your audience, gentlemen. Back to your audience. I've got a few questions for you from that have been posted. So. Quite interesting questions. So, have you had any surprises regarding customer buying behaviours during the pandemic? If so, what are the main things you've learned from the experience? That was from Tanya Garland, the MD at Coolblue.
Do you want to go, Tim? Do you have many surprises in your life? It'd be nice to have some. Were
you surprised about this?
I'm surprised, to be honest, despite what I said. I'm quite surprised at some of the better end that we sold during the pandemic online. Yeah, and that was very reassuring for me. And you know, if you know, we deal with major brands, and I won't go through. It's not a commercial list, but it's known that obviously with sofa brands, Seaplan, Parkinol, and Duresto, and you know, they're good businesses, and people, customers today are still loyal to those. And we still sell them. And we're still taking those kind of orders, you know.
Yeah, I think that has been a surprise, and I think maybe, you know, we can rationalise that by going, home has become more, going back to one of Peter's earlier themes, and we've seen this in some of the work we've been doing. Home has become very important to people for all the reasons you'd expect. Spending more time there, people are proud of their homes. They want that flexibility, and I think what we've been surprised by is the higher average order values that we've seen coming through, and some of the products that we've been selling online that you never thought you could sell, some of the high-end recliners. I don't know if you're into recliners, Peter, but that's quite a good line to get into. They've been very successful, but you do need to demonstrate them well online with video and live video chat, etc. But there's definitely been a trade-up mentality from a lot of customers, definitely been a trade-up, even when the showroom has been shut. And I expect, looking at the web traffic and the types of products that people are looking at, they are looking to trade up a bit, actually. So, you know, we'll be responding to that, let's just put it that way.
So you're seeing like higher investment. The other sort of link to that question was looking at, is there anything that you have trialed, you know, either technology or operationally for the first time during this pandemic? And you've actually wondered, why didn't we do this before? That's brought about any unexpected results that you would then sort of carry on after the lockdown?
Yeah, we've done. I mean, we've been trialing and playing with live video chat for quite a long time. So we took in Sophology. We've got we work with a company called Go In Store, which is literally where the colleague can walk you around the product and show you the product and talk to you, voice, explain the features and benefits and book deals online. So, and that's grown exponentially, but we've taken that a little step further and we've opened up what we call dark stores, where the store's being closed, but actually we see that being part of the future as well. So for those customers who are comfortable buying virtually and don't want to sit, we want to be able to cater for that all year round and not always on. So that's something we'll look at that I think will be part of our offer going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Peter. I think Jim's right. I mean, through the online services with live chat or video calls, there's no question about it that will a good degree of that will stay around for some time. It was interesting, but I've forgotten his name now, but the man that built up RH Restoration Hardware in the States, very terrific, and what a wonderful business that is. If anybody's visited it, particularly the big one in Chicago, it's just amazing. And he said in an article once that he wouldn't expect for online to be more than 10% of the sales in furniture, in furniture which actually has a bricks as well as clicks. And that was pretty much where we were. Obviously, of late, it's been all of it. But I think when it settles, it won't go back to where it was, but it certainly won't be 10. It'll be above 10, and it might be 20. But I guess one of the interesting things.
Gary Friedman at Restoration Hardware.
Gary Friedman, that's it. Yeah.
What they're doing with their interiors is absolutely phenomenal, and that is about, you go to their showrooms for a true experience. And I'm not saying we'll go down that route, but there's a lot of inspiration that we can take from him and what they're up to in the States.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that probably is if we've had time to think about things that you tend to push to one side because of the activities of business, use so much of your time up. In the same way as somebody's furloughed and they're at home, they will have painted the house and they will have cleared under the cupboards and out the cupboards and mowed the lawn so many times. In a business, you're doing those things to find out where you could improve. We mentioned Restoration Hardware. That's an area I see them as, and others in the States are great retailers, fantastic retailers, that we modeled the original Furniture Village on and will continue to do so. But I think biggest thing for us is that we've had time to look at our business, and a big word for me at the moment is productivity. That's the biggest issue for us. We all measure our sales. We all do that, whatever business we're in. We all measure our sales and we measure our margins and we measure our stock levels. And those areas, if those that have tuned in today are all in the industry, will be all familiar with that, and have our own systems and procedures for doing it. And some of us may measure productivity and how well a model sells compared to other models, but productivity based in terms of the space that those models occupy in the store. And being more of a multi-product operator, because we have sofas and cabinet furniture and beds and bedroom furniture and accessories, and we're growing accessories very rapidly. We're just bringing in garden furniture, and we've got quite a big section now on home office. So we're quite keen to be a one-stop shop Furniture Village, particularly now as well, given that clearly COVID is going to have an effect upon people's purchasing habits forever. I suppose it'll gradually wane in terms of its heightened, the online's heightened position now. As soon as the shops are open, they'll drop down, but they won't go back to where it was before. And for a mature audience as well, people want to go out and people want to be careful when they go out. And if they can go to one store and buy everything. So we've been working behind the scenes to work on that big time, where we get the multiple purchase and making sure that we have a synergy between all of those products and a handwriting where people come in and say, this is okay for me. You know, I was very upset if somebody buys a sofa from me but doesn't buy their bed or tables and chairs and think I'm doing something wrong. You mentioned a moment ago about what's different through and online. We have maintained our participation, in fact, increased it of previous customers, which I'm so pleased about, because they've come in specifically to buy it, and they knew what they want. They knew what they want, and they may well have seen it before the lockdown occurred. So, okay.
Here's an interesting question. This is from Billy Quinn, the managing director of the Dispute Resolution Ombudsman. He asked the question: will the move to digital sales, already accelerated by COVID, lead to smaller physical showrooms nationally? And how would that be achieved?
Smaller physical showrooms. Well, I can only speak from my point of view, and I know Peter's sat in Crawley. No, actually, I think you have to create more of a destination. I'll go back to the restoration hardware example and other examples in states like room and board. I think you have to create, if you're going to come out to a showroom, it's got to be worth your while. So I actually think it's going to be more about, in furniture, investing more in the stores and creating more of an experience. And I know that's where Peter's going, and that's how we see it. If you if you start to go down a route of making them more like pickup points and smaller, I think you lose that differential of being a proper integrated and omni-channel retailer. So I think stores become more important, not less important, bigger, not smaller, more inspirational, not functional. So that's probably where I'd be. Yeah, Peter?
I agree with him totally. You know, there are different kinds of physical shopping scenarios, aren't there? And we're all aware that the high streets have suffered hugely. Shopping centres will have suffered because the anchors are going out of business. You know, some of these shopping centres, fabulous shopping centres in their day, have no longer got an anchor because they haven't got a Debenhams or forgive me, a House of Fraser as it was. They may not even have a John Lewis, but I don't know which ones they're closing, but they're sure as hell aren't opening them. You know, I guess I don't want to take comfort from the demise of others at all. And that isn't something one would do in business, but I'm actually interested in larger stores.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've been working on a furniture village at home, a superstore. I mean, big.
Whereabouts are you thinking of that, Peter?
Whereabouts?
Yeah. Next question. Move on before he tells me.
Charlie, where are we buying that? Well, wherever we go, and this is very important, you are judged by the company you keep. You also decide on the location of your shops, where your neighbours are, and the ones that you know that will benefit you. And they've been very serious, and you can tell, I would hope what comes across in this conversation, that we're actually quite good pals, Tim and I. I mean, not as good as I was with Ian, of course, but, you know, not bad. No, I'm only playing. But we do talk about things. And I think that I'm very happy to be sitting with DFS. I'm very happy to be near SCS. I'm very happy to, but I'm also happy next to being to Curry's and other, but we're out of town. The big issue is we're out of town. Yeah. And I have to say that I'm struggling a little bit with big out of town operators that are looking at small stores in towns. Centers. And by me, I come from a department store background. I loved it. I loved department store, I loved town. But I wanted to take, that was Alders, take Alders out of town. And so in the end, I did it on my own and, you know, got there eventually, but with furniture and furnishings. But I think there's a fabulous opportunity, you know, for furniture. And I think people do want to have an experience and they want to go to somewhere, and whether it's restoration hardware or I've forgotten the name of it, I call them Ben and Jerry's. I know we talked about it, Tim, the other day, a wonderful shop in America, which is just marvelous. I mean, like 400,000 square feet, and they had their own cinema, 200-seater cinema, and they had ice cream parlors, and you know, wonderful, wonderful. The name will come to me in a moment, but and I'm sure somebody will say it. Listen, out of town is here to stay. We know it is. Ever since, you know, parking was so expensive in town centres, that's what put me, and you curb your bloody wheels going into these tiny little parking places. You know, people want to come to out of town where there's lots of space and they've got air, and you know, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it'll never change. It will never change. You know, in that particular case, I think big is beautiful. I think bigger stores, easy access, adjacent parking, free parking, big stores. We medicine in our stores, and Tim doesn't do that, but we as Sofology do. Just make them attractive, nice places to go to.
Yeah.
You know, I can't see anybody changing that unless there's some kind of suspended animation online. You know, I did hear that Wayfair are perfecting this thing now, where if you take your iPad or your phone and you go into it and you run your phone, your fingers over the screen, you can feel the texture of the fabric. And it's all done by these tiny little things that you do. And it's quite extraordinary that you would never have thought that could happen. So I don't know, maybe you do put these glasses on and things and you hold it and you believe I don't know. It was Jordan's, by the way. It was Jordan's. Forgive me, that was silly that I couldn't remember it. But it's a store called Jordan's, and in America. And to me, it had a massive impression on me and an influence on where I would see us going in the future. Big is beautiful in that case, I think.
Good. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share your experiences with us, both about what's been going on in the business over this challenging time, but also looking forward to the future. I think we're all looking forward to, you know, reopening the stores and getting things back on track, hopefully. So really appreciate your contribution today. Sadly, our time has kind of gone today, but there's a number of questions. So maybe we could, what we'll do is we won't forget these. We will answer them, and then what we'll do is we'll publish a resume, if you like, or a summary of our conversation today and the highlights of it. But I just wanted to thank you for sharing those experiences with us. I think it's been really beneficial for all of us to hear those things.
It's been a pleasure. Peter, going to say just one thing to the industry. Hang on in there. Hang on in there. The future's bright. The future is bright, and we need a strong industry. It's good for everybody. And I tell you what, there's room enough for everyone. There is room enough for everyone. And, you know, nobody owns any of it. You get it on your own abilities and what you do. But I think the future is bright for our industry. Serve the customers right. If you serve the customers right and give them what they want, I think we'll have a good time. And I'm sorry to say that in almost the same as in this pandemic time. But good luck to the industry. It's a wonderful industry, and we should promote it in every opportunity we have.
And I'd echo that, because I think the support we've had from our supplier partners and everybody we've worked with through the pandemic has been phenomenal. And it's our job as we come out of this, as the sort of bigger retailers in this sector, to keep that support going. Yeah. I think there is room for everyone. I think increasingly UK manufacturing and innovation will play a bigger part, actually. Going back to the earlier things I said, so innovation, I think there's a couple of questions about, so smaller manufacturers, how do you get involved? Well, you just email us and get involved, because we can find ways of supporting smaller manufacturers and innovation going forward. Absolutely. So, you know, it's all about having that unique product in the end, and that's what, you know, it's a lifeblood of our business, and we'll do our best to retail it and look after customers, but we need that lifeblood of MPD coming through. And I think the UK manufacturing and innovation that we're seeing is phenomenal, and a huge thank you to everybody who's supported our group. And I'm sure Peter would say the same. Over it's been tough, but we're coming out of it on the front foot. And as an industry, we should be looking to thrive really in the UK now. So I'd support that.
Yeah,
future is bright. Well said. Good on you too.
Thank you. So just in conclusion, obviously the opportunity that the furniture makers provide is really to get involved, to create that thriving British furniture industry, where we have a talented workforce. Over this whole period, there have been a large number of awards, personal awards, given to people who are in need. So you might know someone who could do with some support right now. So please get in touch with the Furniture Makers Company. Also, maybe you'd like to join a growing number of UK companies who are joining the livery. with an intention to help out. It's free on a special program called One Step Champions, which is again looking at charity to help people. So please get in touch with us. We'd love to get involved and to expand that work out. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a really enjoyable discussion. Thank you for your good humor, your generosity, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you today, and thank you for your contribution.
Our pleasure. God bless. Bye, everyone. Bye. Catch up, Tim. Bye.
Yeah, see you.
After COVID had hit was really a worrying time for me, because it was looking at where the future was going. Not having that regular work in was going to mean that I was going to start struggling to get my rent paid. So it could have meant the end of my business. I started my business roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago. In that time, it was sort of a slow build-up. I was just about getting to the point where I had nice regular work on, but COVID hit. Wasn't sure what was next, wasn't sure where the jobs were going to come from. Basically, I was going to have to try and find some money from somewhere.
The Furniture Makers Company are trying to reach out to everybody who's been adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The advice I would give people that are struggling at the moment is go to our website, look at the section on the COVID-19, look at the application form, send in all the paperwork that we have asked for, and then we can process it very, very quickly.
The application process was really simple. I got the application through the email, got that sent off, and within 3 days I had the money in my account. The grant freed up my headspace really, financially. It opened up my creative side of my brain again, allowing me to really focus on getting furniture made and getting furniture sold.